Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to KyleCast. My name is Kyle Krupa, and today we're having an episode called Convince Me, where I invite someone to convince me on something. Today, I have NASCAR aficionado Zach Curtis to convince me on why I should watch NASCAR and why it is not a redneck sport for inbred hillbillies. Zach, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kyle. It's nice to be here.
All right.
Actually, I lied to you. It's not nice to be here. I can't stand the sight of you.
Well, get in line. My mother does not like the sight of me. My father does not like the sight of me. My sisters don't like the sight of me. My non-existent girlfriend does not like the sight of me. Hell, even my left hand does not like the sight of me.
It wouldn't be a meeting with us if we didn't banter each other relentlessly.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's fair.
All right. So, Zach, tell me about your love of NASCAR.
Well, it started when I was like 5.
Okay.
And for some reason, I can't remember what it was. I don't know if I used to collect toy cars a lot. I still do. Please help. It's an obsession. I don't know if I got a NASCAR one, and my dad turned it on the TV one time, and I started watching. My dad always says that he turned it on one time, and he changed the channel, and I begged him to change it back, so he changed it back, and I've been hooked ever since. But 15 years later, here I am still watching it every Sunday, and I don't know, there's just something about watching cars go fast for 3 hours that has me hooked.
All right. And so you have a collection of NASCAR memorabilia. Can you go in depth about that?
Yeah, so basically what a lot of my memorabilia is, it can be anything from like signed hats to they make model cars of the cars that are on track, and they'll sell them for $50-$60, but they're great to collect, and that's one aspect of being a race fan that is kind of in the identity of being a racing fan, is having the memorabilia. It's just like any other sport. You see people that are Packers fans that go to the game with the cheese heads on there, and you'll see NASCAR fans on Sundays wearing T-shirts and excuse me, T-shirts, hats, whatever, with their favorite driver on it, and it's just part of the culture.
All right. Why do you watch NASCAR? Is there an aspect that you love about it that drives you in, makes you watch every single race, or what?
So,
why?
Basically, each person that watches racing has a different aspect of why they watch it. Some people just love all forms of auto racing, kind of like myself. I'll watch NASCAR, Formula One, I'll watch IndyCar, just about any form of auto racing I'll watch. There's the old adage of, people only watch NASCAR for the wrecks, that's probably true for your stereotypical, 17, 18-year-old frat bro who only watches NASCAR to go get drunk with his friends and watch cars crash. But I've always kept with the adage that real race fans, they don't watch for wrecks. A lot of what goes into NASCAR is the technical aspect of it, the strategy of how to run your pit strategy, whether you want to take 4 tires, 2 tires, what the track is doing throughout the race. The track can change constantly. So there was one track they raced at a couple weeks ago, Atlanta Motor Speedway, and that track just absolutely chews up tires. The surface is over 20 years old, and every crew chief has a real tough time with it, trying to decide what they need to do to make sure their car can carry so much speed. That's one of the things that NASCAR is kind of about, is the strategy and the technical aspect of it. And a lot of people don't realize that. It's hard to get that on the TV. So that's just one aspect that I love about it. I love speed. I love watching fast cars. It's great.
Right.
That's one of the reasons why I love it.
Let's go back to the technical aspect.
Yeah.
Do you know a lot about the technical aspect itself? And can you go a little bit more in depth?
So,
I know you breezed over it just recently.
Yeah.
Can you go a little bit more in depth?
So I don't consider myself kind of a gearhead by any means. I don't know a whole lot about cars, but from watching racing enough, I've kind of learned a little bit about the technical aspect of it. And what I was talking about with the last track, Atlanta Motor Speedway, with the old surface. So because it's so old, and the way with how fast the cars are going, the tire wear on it. Excuse me, I'm trying to collect my thoughts. The tires that they run on there, they don't have treads or anything like your normal street tires, so they wear down a lot faster. And with a really old surface, it just absolutely kills the tires. So you saw a lot of in practice on Friday and Saturdays. What a lot of crew chiefs had noticed was the speeds were tapering off about 3 or 4 miles an hour each lap, and that can affect your race. So what a lot of crew chiefs are look at, especially if there's a race that doesn't have a lot of cautions, when you pit, you basically have to take 4 tires every time at a track like that. It's just one of the technical things that goes into it. But like I said, I'm not a gearhead by any means, but there's a lot that goes into it. Different teams have different engine builders that can find a little bit extra that can get you an extra 2 or 3 seconds on the track, which can make a world of difference. And there's a lot that can go in through with in-race adjustments. The drivers have something called a track bar, which can adjust the handling on the car, and there's a little meter they can use to adjust that in the race. And then when they pit, the crews can do a little bit to adjust the car on track. But a lot of it is in the garage, back at the shop, which goes through Monday through Thursday when they're preparing the car for the race. So a lot of it goes in that. But like I said, I don't know a whole lot about the technical aspect, but I do know it's a very technical sport, and there's a lot you can read up on that.
All right. There's lots of tracks, like you said.
Yes.
There's one actually where we are located right now in Richmond.
Yes, Richmond
You
Raceway.
go about talking about Richmond Raceway. What are some technical aspects about there that's compared to like all the other tracks, be it Daytona, Atlanta,
Right.
Vegas, etc.?
So Richmond's really unique. When it was first built, it was built back in 1946 as a half-mile dirt oval, and about I want to say in the 60s or 70s they paved it and it became a half-mile oval. Then they reconfigured it again to what it currently is. It's a 3/4 mile track, which is unique because it's the only 3/4 mile track on the NASCAR circuit. So it definitely throws some of the crew chiefs and drivers for a little bit of a curve with it being the only 3/4 mile track. And the turns are banked a little bit more than what you see at other short tracks, such as a track like Martinsville or Bristol, which are two very flat short track. Actually, Bristol is very highly banked and Martinsville is very flat, but Richmond's kind of in between them. So it's a unique track on that aspect, and it takes a lot of skill to get around it. It's fast for the type of track it is. So that's just one of the aspects that really makes Richmond unique. It also has 2 night races on there, which is another aspect. It's the only track on the circuit that has 2 night races. So that is really unique to the racing experience there. And with it being a night race, since it's cooler at night, that can change the track temperature, which can affect tire wear and handling. And it can also affect what the preferred line is on the racetrack. At a day race, you can see kind of multiple grooves happen. So Richmond used to have a day race. The past couple years, their spring race was in the day. And what you'd see is, at least what I saw on the stands and on TV, you'd see some drivers really stick to the bottom of the track where there was a lot more grip. But as the race went on, some drivers started moving up to the higher lines, started putting down a little bit more rubber, which put a lot more grip on the high line. And more drivers are taking that route, and that route ended up being one of the faster ones around there, which isn't how a lot of racing works. So normally running the bottom on a turn is the fastest way around the track. But the nighttime racing makes it really unique. So a lot of drivers and crews will have to kind of figure out how to work that.
NASCAR tends to has a stigma about it's mostly a sport for rednecks or like blue collar workers, etc. Looking at you are not that. You are the complete opposite, my friend.
Yeah, that's definitely the normal stereotype of NASCAR. I actually did my senior paper about stereotypes of NASCAR fans, and I try to stick online. So there's communities on Twitter has a real active following of NASCAR fans. There's a really active community on Reddit that has a lot of NASCAR fans in there. I want to say I was on it today a lot for probably. I want to say it has 50 to 60,000 subscribers on there, and there's at any time 3,000 or 4,000 people on there that are really active, and a lot of the drivers and media have picked up on that, and they've joined the subreddit and have discussed racing with the fans on there. But those people on that group, they're the farthest from what I consider this stereotypical NASCAR fan is. And there's a lot of that stigma that is with being a NASCAR fan. Is like, oh, I don't want to go watch that. That's just for dumb rednecks. But it's really not. You do have those people out there that have you have Jim Baum out there who's smoking a cigarette and just, slamming back a 30 pack of Miller Lite, which you get a lot of NASCAR fans that are like that, but it's for everybody. It's just like any other sport. And you'll get those types of fans at football games, baseball games, but for some reason NASCAR just has this stigma attached to it, and it's because where it grew up. It grew up in the South running moonshine, and that's how people started racing each other in cars, is from running moonshine. So that stigma's still there, but NASCAR is really trying to work to get away from that, and I think they're at a crossroad right now of they want to get away from that stigma of what their stereotypical fan is and try to bring in new people. But at the same time, you don't want to lose those fans. So, and I'll get into a little bit about the crossroads later if you wouldn't mind diving into that.
Fine, yeah.
Because there's a lot I can talk about with this sport. As Kyle mentioned earlier, I'm a big fan, still am, and trying to work in the industry, it's something I'm passionate about. So, but I'll get into that a little later.
All right. Actually, let's just jump into it right now.
We'll go ahead and try to get a transition in there, I guess. So, I don't know if you want to go ahead and introduce that or what, but I guess I'll do it.
Yeah, go for it.
I don't know. So, what I mentioned earlier is NASCAR seems to be at a crossroad right now of the older generation, which were the people who grew up with in the 70s and 80s and 90s, and what people would consider to be the heyday of NASCAR. And they had this big boom in kind of the mid-90s up into the early 2000s before really the economic recession hit, and that killed a lot of the fan base off, which is sad to see. But they're in a transition period of these old fans and new fans, and along with old drivers and new drivers. Just in the past 5 years, they've lost huge stars. Jeff Gordon retired in 2015. Tony Stewart retired, who was a 3-time champion. Matt Kenseth just retired last year. He was the 2003 champion and one of the last guys left over from the early 2000s period. And as probably a lot of people have seen, even people who aren't NASCAR fans, everybody knows his name. Dale Earnhardt Jr. just retired, and that was a big one, and a lot of people were really worried about that. But at the same time, we've got these real good crop of young drivers coming in who have, they have great personalities and they have really good driving talent. Ryan Blaney is one of them. He's the son of former driver Dave Blaney, who is a sprint car legend up in the Midwest. Chase Elliott is in there, who is Bill Elliott's son, who is a NASCAR champion, most popular driver winner, and he's already kind of been shot into superstardom. So there's this new crop of young guys coming up, but a lot of the old time fans, they don't seem to want to come into that. They don't want to accept these new drivers into the community, I guess is what I'd say. But yeah, it's an interesting time to get into it, but I'd argue that there's no better time to get into it than now with the crossroads that they're at. I think honestly it's got nowhere to go but up.
Right. You also said like you're aspiring to work at RIR, Richmond International Raceway.
We're not actually Richmond Raceway now.
Yeah. Oh, Richmond Raceway.
Yes, they rebranded. That's really new, as in back of September or August of last year.
Oh.
The company that owns the International Speedway Corporation, that owns about 13 or 14 tracks in NASCAR, is going through a time where they want to rebrand some of their tracks and kind of add new fan amenities to them. And that's something I'll kind of want to get into later as well. But yeah, I want to work in racing, kind of an aspiring PR person. I like writing about racing. I like reading about it. It's my passion. So,
I mean, you already have a gig at RIR.
Yeah, so I've got a little gig there right now. I'm working their event promotions. So I'll go around to different speedways around the state of Virginia and promote Richmond Raceway and try to get people out to head out and see a race.
All right, so what does that job really entail? Can you go in depth about it?
Yeah, so it really kind of entails, like I mentioned, a lot of going out to outbound events and promoting it. So we'll go to some of the short tracks around the state of Virginia, like Langley Speedway in Hampton, Southside Speedway down in Chesterfield. We're heading out to Martinsville later in the season, which is coming up in about 3 weeks. And South Boston Speedway, another one of the local short tracks. So we'll hit those real hard and try to get people to come out and watch a NASCAR race with us. But that's what it really entails. Richmond Raceway has recently got a new simulator that they've put in an old stock car. It's got a program called iRacing.com. It's one of the top-of-the-line motorsport simulators. And we'll try to get people in there and do that and kind of get the budget NASCAR experience, if you will. It's as close you can get to racing without owning a race car. So that's a little bit about what we're doing this year.
All right, so tell me about some of your race stories at NASCAR. I'm pretty sure, because like you said, there's an eclectic fan base.
Yeah,
and a very interesting fan base, I should say.
Yeah,
maybe not eclectic, but interesting.
Yeah.
So if you can go into depth about some of your NASCAR stories.
There's one that stands out to me. So what a lot of people don't know is NASCAR has 3 different series with them. They have a truck racing series, which they race modified pickup trucks, for lack of a better word. There's something called the Xfinity Series, which I'd equate to AAA baseball, and then there's the Monster Energy Cup Series, which is the top tier of NASCAR. So I was at a Xfinity race, and back when I went to it was called the Busch Series, and my dad and I were out tailgating, getting ready to make some dinner, and these people that were tailgating next to us, they looked at my dad and offered him Jello shots, and my dad is not much of a drinker, so he was like, "No, I'll pass." And they looked at me, and I'm, maybe 11 or 12 years old at this time, and asked me if I wanted Jello shots. And my dad looks at them and says, "He is 12." And they said, "So does he want any?" And my dad just looked at me and looked at them and said, "No." I didn't even know what a Jello shot was at the time. I was almost 12 years old. But, yeah, I've had a lot of really good fan experience out there with a lot of great people. Like Kyle said, NASCAR fans are an eclectic bunch, but I guarantee you won't meet a friendlier group of sports fans. It's not like if you go to a football game or a basketball game or anything, you'll see people fighting in the stands. I have never seen 2 NASCAR fans going at it in a stands. Like, I went to a football game a couple years ago between the Seahawks and the Ravens, and this one guy showed up in a Steelers jersey at a Baltimore Ravens game just to start drama, basically, and ended up getting into a fight in some dudes in the stands. And I looked at my dad, and I turned to him and I said, "You'd never see that at a NASCAR race. You would never see 2 people fight each other over fandom. It's just silly." But you could also chalk that up to the stereotypical thing of, oh, most people are drunk and they're passed out anyway. So, but like I said, you'll never run into a friendlier group of fans. Really, every NASCAR fan I've talked to has been a joy to talk to, and they're all passionate about racing, and that's what they share as similarity in this. They all love the same thing.
All right. And so obviously, like any other sport, you have a favorite team, you have a favorite driver in this case, and you go in depth about who's your favorite driver, why, and everything else.
Since I'm trying to work in the industry, I want to stay away from any fandom at the moment. I'm trying to.
But what's the driver you're most interested in?
Well, right now as I said before, the most popular driver for the longest time was Dale Earnhardt Jr. And that has come to an end since he has just retired. He sold the most model cars, had the most fans, most T-shirts, whatever. Everybody loved him. He could do no wrong. And in the words of the President of the United States, he could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue, shoot somebody, and his ratings would not have dropped. So, but like I said, it's at a crossroads. But what driver I mentioned earlier, Chase Elliott, he's going to be the new star because NASCAR has anointed him as the next big thing. So, a lot of it goes into driver marketing and trying to kind of hype people up on who's going to be the next star. Excuse me, I'm fighting over this really annoying cold. But it's a lot about who's going to be the next big star in that, and they're trying to find that next Dale Earnhardt Jr. who's going to, just transcend NASCAR itself and be able to go out to other people, to reach sports fans that aren't necessarily NASCAR fans, but turn him into a household name. So he's one of the more popular ones, and there's another guy, Ryan Blaney, who's going to be popular. He has a great podcast to listen to too called Glass Case of Emotion. That's just absolutely hilarious. So it's all about, a lot of people will look to drivers not necessarily based on their driving skill, but their personalities. And it's something you don't really see in a lot of sports. If you were to look at a football team, you can't judge the New England Patriots on a personality. The team itself doesn't really, it does have a personality, but it doesn't at the same time because it's a bit different than the other sport. You're dealing with individuals and not a team. So it's all about, if you're trying to be a fan, you need to look for something that you like, whether it's a driving style, whether it's who they are on and off the track. And that's just something that a lot of fans look towards, is personality.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That didn't really answer your question, but like I said, I'm trying to avoid coming off as a fan. I don't want to have that persona, so
I understand. You're trying to keep it
try
professional.
to be professional and remain a true neutral.
I understand. That's kind of hard, especially in like a sports-related field.
Right. Especially something that you loved since you were a kid.
Oh God, yes. All right. So,
it'd be like working for your favorite band and trying not to.
Not the fanboy.
Yeah,
the entire
try
time.
Not to be the annoying fanboy every time. Like.
All right. So, what do you think separates NASCAR from something like Formula One racing? Because NASCAR, like we mentioned before, seems to be very lowbrow, very redneck-esque. However,
right.
Formula One racing and everything, when I see it, I think the Monte Carlo Grand Prix.
Yeah.
I think the bougie type of people, like the upper class, the 1% type of deal.
I've always said I do like to watch F1, but since those races are all around the world, they come on. Some of them come on at really inconvenient times. I stayed up till 2:30 in the morning watching the Australia Grand Prix last year, and then right as they had their green flag, I turned it off and went to bed because I was too tired. But what you see a lot with Formula One in NASCAR, you can tell based on the sponsors, the companies that get it. So if you watch a Formula One race, you'll see like Rolex, Johnny Walker. I'm not sure if Johnny Walker is really a established brand, and from what I've gathered, it's relatively expensive. But you'll see champagne sponsors, Pirelli tires, which are always associated with nice. And then you look at NASCAR, and your sponsors are like Miller Lite, Goodyear tires, and you see Walmart pop up for ads. But it's all about the advertising, I guess, and Formula One just seems to attract kind of the higher class people, and that might be the venues they race. The Grand Prix of Monte Carlo is one of the biggest motorsports events of the year, and I guess that, when you think of Monte Carlo, you think of glitz and glamour, but NASCAR just doesn't seem to attract that. But that can kind of turn a lot of people off from watching F1 as like, oh, these people are just real racing elitists. They're not gonna let me watch, because I don't fit into that culture. So, but I'm sorry, what was your question again?
Right. Also, besides the culture of between the two, what separates
the
NASCAR from?
Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
So Formula One, from what I've gathered from watching, the little bit of Formula One I have watched, there's a big difference in racing styles. Formula One are open wheel cars, and NASCAR is a stock car. So Formula
What's
One.
the difference between open wheel?
Yeah, so a stock car, what it used to be back in the old days, 60s and 70s, you could go into a showroom, you could buy, a Plymouth Roadrunner. I'm just using that as an example. And you could go out and watch Richard Petty race his Plymouth on Sunday, and then go in Monday and buy the exact same car he ran. Obviously, a driver would be putting a different engine in there, but it was the exact same, body style, and everything was true to the showroom. Nowadays, they're still stock cars, and they've tried to get back to, there's an old saying in racing that was win on Sunday, sell on Monday. So you could win in a Chevrolet on Monday, and you could go out and buy that same car on the Monday. And NASCAR is trying to get back to that a little bit. They want the cars to look like that same body style of the four-door sedans like that. So right now they race the Toyota Camry, Chevy runs the Camaro ZL1, and Ford runs the Fusion. And those are both all three of those are four-door sedans. Is the Camaro four-door? I'm not sure. It might be a two-door, depending on the model, I guess. I don't know exactly, but that's beside the point. They want to get back to that brand recognition of you can look at the car on the track and then go look at the car on the street, and they're virtually the same thing. While Formula One, on the other hand, those cars are basically $1 million rocket ships that are so tricked out, and they don't have fenders, they're open wheel, and they're just so tricked out for speed and aerodynamics that they look nothing like anything you'd ever see on the street. While a NASCAR car is something you could see on the street. It's got that body style. It's recognizable by people who are into cars, and it's something you could buy in a dealership. While a Formula One car is basically a very fast rocket ship on wheels.
Right.
But there's a difference in the racing too, and I cut you off. I don't know if you had something to interject there, but there's a difference in the racing style too. So Formula One is they do what's called a standing start. So they'll have their cars on a grid in front of the line, and then they'll put out a green light, and the race will start. While NASCAR will do a rolling start, so they'll do about 3 or 4 pace laps to get the cars kind of up to speed, and then they'll throw the green flag, and the cars are already moving when they start. While Formula One, they're at a standstill. And then Formula One racing is a little bit different. It's fast. The races aren't as long, but they race strictly at road courses, so they're going left and right, whereas NASCAR tends to stick going left. But the racing style is totally different. Formula One, if you're starting first, that's basically going to be the guy who wins the race, and the only opportunity to pass is at the beginning of a race. There's not as much close racing in Formula One as there's with NASCAR. There's maybe 30 passes in Formula One a season. I'm using 30 as a number, but maybe 70 or 80 Formula One passes in a season, where NASCAR could see 80 passes on the track in one race. So the racing's a lot closer in NASCAR than it is in Formula One, and that's just one of the big differences between it. Formula One is also a lot more technical than NASCAR is. A lot of people don't realize how technical NASCAR is, but Formula One is even more. There's a lot that goes into that, and that car, if it's not 100% perfect, it won't even be close to the front. I've always said in NASCAR, a second makes a difference. In Formula One, 1/10 of a second makes a difference. So that's just a couple of the differences between the two forms of motorsport.
All right. So what would be your dream race to go to?
So one of my dream races to go to would be the Daytona 500, which I had tickets for this year. It was my graduation present, but I got this job with Richmond Raceway, and I decided that was a little bit more important because I could further my career than going to the Daytona 500. So I didn't get a chance to go, but if I had tickets again, I would definitely go to that race. It's been one of my bucket list races to go to. Also, the Bristol Night Race in August that's always been kind of one of the old school races that people have loved. Is that race? That's a half-mile short track, so there's a lot of action involved in that one, and people love it and fans eat it up. It's at the end of August, and it's normally a really good race on the schedule to go to.
All right.
And then obviously the races at Richmond are great to go to as well.
Yeah, plug that in. Oh, also I love my city, Richmond Raceway.
But I'm not just saying that because I work for them. I'm saying that because I've been going out there for so long, and it really is a great track to go to because the racing is fantastic.
All right. And just one more final question.
Yeah.
Give me your pitch. Tell me pitch me to get into NASCAR.
Into NASCAR.
You explained the technicalities.
Right.
You've answered my questions about the whole culture and everything.
So,
just convince me.
Okay, so I pitched this to a roommate of mine last year who you actually knew, Brad.
Yeah.
He wasn't too big into a lot of sports, but he told me he liked to watch golf a little bit, which is fine. I'm not too big into golf, but it's fine if you watch golf. I try to get into racing by kind of convincing him it's very similar to golf in a way. It's kind of a build up over the entire race, like golf is a build up over the 3 days of a tournament. So in NASCAR, it's all about what you can do throughout the duration of a race to get your car to run how you want it to run. It's not like football where you can kind of get a couple of play, or basketball I should say, where you can go on a run of 20 points and suddenly you're winning the game. With NASCAR, you have to be consistent throughout the entire race and throughout the entire season to win. So it's one of those sports that it takes a while to see your results. So if you like something like that, it's definitely good to get into. If you like the technical aspect of it, it's fun to watch. And like I said, I can't remember what got me into it, But there was just something about it when I first turned it on that had me hooked, and I've been hooked ever since. My other pitch to you to get into racing would be go to one. People have always said, "Oh, it's so boring on TV," and there are some races that kind of slog along that aren't exciting to watch. But every sporting event is not going to be perfect. Every football game is not going to be won on a game-winning touchdown pass. Every baseball game is not going to be a walk-off grand slam. So, and every soccer game is not going to end on a 90th minute game winner. So, but every NASCAR race is not going to be a side-by-side exciting finish for the win. You're going to have some races where a guy just flat out dominates and wins by 5 seconds, which has happened the past couple of weeks. But I guess if you like kind of constant action in racing, there's never a dull moment. And if you go to one, you can see that the TV doesn't show it as well. So a lot of times TV will just focus on the kind of the top 5 guys and the big names. But if you go to a race, you'll see the action on the track that isn't just the leader. Sometimes the leader's totally out front and you don't see anything else on TV. But if you're at the track, you can look around, you can see where some of the other battles are developing. You'll see 2 guys in 15th and 16th swapping positions 6 or 7 times throughout a couple laps until somebody can finally get the advantage. But go to one. That's my best pitch. If you haven't given NASCAR a chance, you're kind of on the fence about it, go to a race. There's nothing like it. The fan experience is second to none.
All right. Thank you so much, Zach.
Yeah, it's great being on today.
Oh, great being on today. And that's the end of the Kyle cast for Convince Me. Tune in next time when we're going to have someone else in, or we'll just do whenever. This is just a trial run. I'm trying to just get my foot in the door in the whole podcast and audio community.
I wanna plug my blog real quick too. thisweekinnascar.wordpress.com, and you can follow that to keep up with. I do kind of race recaps every week and previews of the next week's race. Follow me on Twitter as well at ZachCurtis11.
You gotta get them plugs.
Gotta get my plug.
I gotta plug it all in.
Gotta get my plug.
Also, Squarespace. I would love you as a sponsor. In the meantime, I'll stick with water. It's free.
Blue Apron is cool too.
Blue Apron, can you make free meals?
Typical podcast plugs.
Hold on, we gotta get the other list. We gotta get lynda.com.
Square Readers.
Square
for
Readers.
your small business.
My small business. Ooh. What else? Edible Arrangements.
Edible Arrangements,
Oh,
yes.
yep, that's a good.
Cherriesberries.com.
Cherriesberries.com. Lemonparty.com.
Edit that out. Oh, God.
God, no. That's taken. All right. So, again, thank you so much for coming on, Zach. And hope to see you again. And you probably will be again.
Yes. If you ever need another guest, let me know.
All right. Thanks, buddy.